If you have been singing in the choir for some time, you may have experienced this before. The choir starts the song beautifully. Everyone is singing confidently. The key is correct and everything sounds fine. But somewhere along the way, something begins to happen. By the time you get to the final verse or the end of the piece, the choir is no longer in the same key which it started. The pitch has gradually dropped. Now, nobody deliberately changed the key. Nobody said, let's sing this lower. It just happened. This is what we commonly describe as singing flat. So today, I want us to talk about why choirs go flat, and more importantly, what choir members and choir directors can do to prevent it. One of the reasons why choirs go flat when they sing is poor breath support. Your voice needs a steady and controlled flow of air. When that support begins to disappear, particularly towards the end of a phrase, maintaining a correct pitch can become more difficult. Think about a long musical phrase. A singer takes a breath at the beginning and starts strongly. But halfway through the phrase, the air begins to run out. And instead of taking another appropriate breath or maintaining good support, the singer struggles to reach the end. Now, what can happen? The sound loses energy and the pitch can begin to drop. Now, imagine several members of the choir doing this at the same time. The effect becomes more noticeable. This is why breathing is not just something singers should think about before they start singing. Breath management continues throughout the entire phrase. Singing softly without support. The choir director says, piano, sing softly, and suddenly everybody almost stop supporting the sound. But singing softly does not mean singing weakly. There is a big difference. You can sing quietly while still maintaining good breath support, good posture, and a focused tone. If the choir reduces both volume and support at the same time, the pitch can begin to drop easily. So whenever you see a soft dynamic in your music, don't think, use a less technique. Think, use the same technique, but control the volume. Another point is poor posture. Posture can also affect intonation. Imagine a choir member standing with its shoulders dropped forward and his chest collapsed and the head looking down at the music. The position isn't particularly helpful for efficient breathing, and this becomes even more common during long rehearsals. At the beginning of the rehearsal, everyone is standing properly. 30 minutes later, people start relaxing. An hour later, some people are practically resting on one leg while singing. As the body becomes less engaged, breathing can become less efficient, and the quality and stability of the sound can suffer. Good posture doesn't mean standing like a soldier. It simply means keeping the body balanced, relaxed, and ready to breathe freely. Vocal and mental fatigue. Sometimes the choir isn't going flat because the members don't know their notes. They are simply tired. And this can happen towards the end of a long rehearsals, after repeatedly singing a demanding section or after singing continuously without enough breaks. And there are actually two kinds of tiredness to consider. The first one is the vocal fatigue, where the voice becomes tired. But there is also mental fatigue. When singers lose concentration, they stop listening carefully. They may continue producing approximately the right notes, but precision begins to disappear. That is when pitch can gradually start drifting. This is one of the reasons choir directors need to think carefully about how rehearsals are structured. Sometimes, repeating the same passage 20 times isn't the best solution. You may get better results by stopping, addressing the actual problem, giving the singers a brief rest, and then trying it again. Following the wrong voice part. This happens more often than people realize. Imagine you're a tenor, but the soprano has a very strong melody. And instead of confidently maintaining your tenor line, you begin listening too closely to the sopranos and become uncertain about your own notes. Or perhaps one very confident singer beside you sings a wrong note. Because that person sounds confident, everybody follows. Confidence doesn't always mean correctness. Every choir member should know his or her own part very well enough to maintain it while listening to complete harmony. That is one of the reasons practicing your part outside rehearsal is so important. Rehearsal shouldn't always be the first time you're properly learning your notes. So, what can we do about it? First, breathe properly and manage your breath throughout the phrase. Second, maintain a good posture even while you're singing softly. Third, listen actively to the singers around you and to the accompaniment. Fourth, know your own voice part. And fifth, don't allow quiet singing to become unsupported singing. And finally, I must say, stay mentally engaged from the first note to the last. For choir directors, when your choirs go flat, try not to simply say, "Come on, you're going flat." Ask yourself, why are they going flat? Where did it begin? Was it at the end of a long phrase? Was it during a quiet section? Was it after a difficult interval? Was the choir tired? Did one voice part pull everybody else down? I tell you, once you identify the cause, you can work on the solution. Now, on a final note, please remember this. Good intonation is a shared responsibility. The conductor has a responsibility. The accompanist also has a responsibility. And trust me, every individual choir member has a responsibility. A great choir doesn't just sing the correct note. A great choir listens, breathes, supports, responds, and work together. So, the next time your choir starts beautifully in one key, but somehow finishes somewhere else, don't just laugh and say, "We went flat again." Ask the most important question. Why did we go flat? Because once you understand why it is happening, you are already much closer to fixing it. Now, I'd love to hear from other choir members and directors. What actually causes your choir to go flat during rehearsals or performances? Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Please feel free to make your comments, likes, share, and subscribe to this channel. We are here to give you much more educational tips that will help you as a singer and also help your choir as a unit to become better. Thank you very much. See you in my next video.